Okay, hello and welcome everybody. My name is Kelsey Norman. I'm a fellow here at the Baker Institute at the Center for the Middle East, and I'm also director of the Women's Rights, Human Rights, and Refugees program. So in October of last year, our program, the Women's Rights, Human Rights, and Refugees program, and specifically my colleague Anna Martingale, I don't know where you are, Anna, but hi. She and I went to Cairo, Egypt, where we convened a workshop on the intersection of gender and displacement in the Middle East and North Africa, in collaboration with the Center for Migration and Refugee Studies at the American University in Cairo. And we chose this topic because while women comprise nearly half of the world's migrants and refugees, specifically 48% and 46%, gender is often neglected when it comes to developing inclusive and impactful policies towards displaced populations. So when we do think about women, migrants, and refugees, we tend to have a very specific image in mind. And usually that individual is cast as a victim, someone who's stranded somewhere along their migratory journey and who's subject to the whims of international actors and host countries. So, working with the Center for Migration and Refugee Studies, we brought together 8 scholars and scholar practitioners, all of whom are from across the Middle East and North Africa region, which is the region hosting the largest numbers of displaced peoples in the world, to look at the issue of gender and migration from a variety of lenses and across different countries and situations. In Cairo, these scholars were able to workshop their research and receive feedback before ultimately publishing their work in a collected series of briefs that's forthcoming from our institute. So before I introduce our speakers for tonight, I'm just going to share a few themes that emerged from this workshop. The first is women's agency. Whoops. 3 of our authors draw on their fieldwork with varying nationalities of displaced women in Egypt, as well as Egyptians moving abroad, to argue for a better understanding of women's agency and resiliency. So looking at Syrian women in Egypt, Dina Taha, thank you, I realize now I went too far. So Dina Taha proposes what she calls marriage for refuge, whereby Syrian women marry Egyptian men for protection, should be seen as a form of self-empowerment and as a legal and social survival tool, rather than merely disregarded as exploitative. Adam Adous argues that while Egyptian women have typically been dismissed as unimportant because they migrate at lower rates than men, often due to patriarchal norms, they nonetheless contribute remittances at higher rates and have served as a critical part of Egypt's state-building processes. And Iman al-Mahdi examines the community associations, informal schools, and money-lending institutions that Sudanese women establish in order to create networks of reciprocity and community that serve as coping mechanisms to navigate life in the absence of strong governmental or humanitarian policies in Egypt. And the photo pictured here is from Iman's work, fieldwork with Sudanese women in Cairo. And that brings me to my second theme, the lack of gender-specific support that women, migrants, and refugees receive. So even as women are resilient actors, 3 of our authors demonstrate the ways in which existing government and international policies fail them. Looking at Turkey, Merve Elderman examines the way that the development community's rhetoric of localization has failed to raise the voices of women, refugee-led organizations, arguing that a holistic approach is needed to create more sustainable and ethical gender policies within the globalized refugee regime. Jasmine Lilia Diab looks at how the COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated existing gender inequalities in Lebanon, especially for migrant and refugee women and girls, reflected in the sharp increases in sexual and gender-based violence, or SGBV, and child marriage in refugee resettlements across the country. And Saniye Deaglu examines how Turkish employers have benefited from, and in some cases exploited, the labor of Syrian refugees, women in the Turkish agricultural sector, in the absence of government policies that account for women's contributions. And you can see some of the photos from Saniye's fieldwork depicted here. And then our final 2 papers both look at health outcomes for migrant women and girls in 2 different contexts. So Mohamed Kharis and his co-authors conducted a survey of sub-Saharan migrant women in Morocco, finding a high prevalence of SGBV, poor utilization of support services, and significant sexual and reproductive health issues. And then Reem Ladawa and her co-authors explore the health challenges the refugee girls experience in Palestinian camps in Jordan and the West Bank as a result of isolation and reduced mobility. Reem and her co-authors argue for several fixes, including creating centers that offer culturally sensitive activities for girls, working with camp families to increase awareness about the transitions that girls experience, and also increasing the integration of camp residents into host communities. So at the moment, you can read the introduction to this collected series of briefs online. You can also scan the QR code out in the lobby if you'd like to take a look at that. And then we'll have the full briefs published there shortly. But to further draw out these themes and to demonstrate that many of these issues are not specific to the Middle East and North Africa and to that context, I'd like to welcome our three speakers for tonight. So first, I'll introduce Chloe Crane, seated in the middle here. Chloe is the Interfaith Ministry's Women's Empowerment Liaison. She's been running the Women's Empowerment Group program since 2016. This group supports refugee women from Arabic-speaking nations in Afghanistan, in the US, and it's designed to prevent social isolation, as well as build community and equip refugee women with the information or skills that they need to thrive in their new life. Prior to her current role, Chloe was a TV producer for 10 years, working for the Associated Press and Al Jazeera, among other networks. Based mainly in the Middle East, she worked on hard news, documentaries, and investigative programs, witnessing firsthand the plight that creates refugees. She has a degree in Arabic and Middle Eastern Studies. And Chloe is accompanied by Diana Halau from the Women's Empowerment Group. She is the Women's Empowerment Group Program Assistant at Interfaith Ministries for Greater Houston, supporting refugee women as they adjust to life in the US. Since 2018, she has translated for the Arabic Women's Empowerment Group, helping coordinate initiatives, and in 2017, she worked with the Amana Refugee Services as a teaching assistant and tutor. In her previous career, Diana was an elementary school teacher in Syria. She speaks fluent Arabic and English. And then we have Mina Shahamati, who is currently an Afghan support specialist at Interfaith Ministries for Greater Houston and supports the Afghan health and wellness programs. She's completing her degree in applied administration from the University of Houston downtown and has an associate degree of legal assistance from Houston Community College, as well as a bachelor's degree in law from Afghanistan. Prior to arriving in the US, Mina worked in the area of women's rights and activism in Afghanistan for 5 years. So I'm going to turn it over to Chloe now. We'll hear from both Mina and Diana for about 30 minutes, and then we'll have a brief moderated discussion that Chloe will lead. And then we'll open it up for Q&A from all of you. And if I could just remind you to please silence your phones ahead of this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Dr. Norman. First of all, thank you to you and your team for this important research. And it's research that's often overlooked or dismissed. And in fact, the Women's Empowerment Group program, Interfaith Ministries Women's Empowerment Group program, would not even exist if it wasn't for these gender distinctions and the differences in how men and women experience their refugee resettlement journey. Back in 2016, when I was working as a volunteer in the refugee community here in Houston, it was very, very clear to me very quickly what a high success rate we were seeing in those communities. So when you talk about defining success, practical success, about 93% of the families that were being resettled at that time were self-sufficient within about 3 to 6 months. And I just want everybody in this room just to sort of pause and think about what that really means. You know, you can talk about figures, but what that means is that people that arrived with carrier bags of belongings were able to support themselves within about 3 to 6 months. It's just kind of mind-blowing when you actually think about the amount of strength you would need for that situation. You fled for your life, you're in a foreign country, and you set yourself up within 3 to 6 months. On a basic level, we're saying roof over our heads, food on our plates, and in addition to that, you know, basic utility bills are being paid. But that's not the whole story. What we saw as we were working with those communities is that refugee women in particular were at risk of not thriving. It was common for refugee women to be not thriving. They were at risk of isolation, alienation, depression, and all the social ills that come with that. So increased risk of domestic abuse, and significantly not reaching their full potential. So I started the Women's Empowerment Group program in response to that, and I ran it for about 2 years as a volunteer before IM pulled me onto the team to really expand the program to be what it is today. And the reason for that is there was and there is a massive need for gender-specific programming for refugee resettlement. So I am privileged and honoured to be sitting here tonight with my two colleagues, as you've heard, Mina and Diana. And what is particularly useful about both of them is one is from Afghanistan and one is from Syria. So when people talk about women's refugee issues, they often talk in large generalizations, and they don't take into consideration the cultural norms, the gender norms of the countries that people have come from. And they vary massively from country to country, and they vary massively from home to home. So when you are talking about women's refugee issues, it's really important you get to know the individuals that you're working with, and have an idea of where they're from. You know, people are people, they think differently. It's really important to remember that, particularly when you're talking about broad policy statements. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand over to Diana now, who's going to share some of her observations and experiences through the lens of gender on her refugee journey. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you. First of all, let me tell you thank you so much for this opportunity. It's such honor to be here with you tonight. Before we dive into some important themes we will be discussing today, let me tell you a little bit about myself, my experiences, and where I came from, my journey to be here tonight. But I'm not promised I will be crying. Okay, I'm from Syria. I grew up in Syria. I have 4 lovely sisters and 1 sweet disability brother, and my mom and dad. My life was normal, happy, quiet, peace, and blessing. Blessing because I was with my family. And then my sisters got married. I was a teacher. I had my career. I was looking for my future. And then I met my husband. Actually, I met him in one of his stores. It was a beauty store, like Sephora. The first time I met him, my heart beating very fast, and I said, oh my God, what's going on with me? What it's called? Maybe this feeling called love? I don't know, maybe. And then I said, oh, maybe I found my man. Yes, he is my man. And then we fall in love. After a few months, we got married. We had our first child. We had a very, very happy days together. Our life was beautiful, and then we dreamed about our future, how it's gonna be. And when we had our first child, we were very happy because we were around all our families, friends, and loved ones. And then the thunderstorm starting in our sunny day, which means the war started in our sunny day. Everything coming very fast. I was pregnant 8 months and like 8 months and a half, like 8 months and a half. Sorry.
It's okay, just take your time.
I was pregnant with my second child, and then we start hearing too many sounds, and I can't know or realize what kind of this sound. If you never heard about bombing explosion, it's like it sounds feeling more than you hear. It's shaking everything. And then I was in Homs. Probably many of you know Homs because you see the picture and like footage of the city was completely erased, and unfortunately it was my city. Everything was like shut down, hospitals, phone service, electricity, and we are not be able to move from area to area, not from like place to place, just like from area to area. And then my husband, he tried his best to find like transportation to go from Homs to Damascus, which means I left Homs to Damascus after like very hard night, and I can tell like it's a nightmare night because I was holding my toddler and my belly because I just was thinking about my kids to protect them. I never think about myself. I just like focus on my kids to be safe and to find a safe place for them. And then we arrived Damascus. In Damascus, the life was normal. The people complete their normal life, everything, they have everything, electricity, stores open, the kids going to the school. So my husband and I, we were very happy because my kids will be safe. And then I had my purchased beautiful baby girl. My husband managed to find work to support us. After 3 months, the war spread and chased us in Damascus again. And then it was very difficult. Like, yes, I'm saying this word now, but I still like remember. Looks like I am in Syria now, and I still remember like my life how it was before I just arrived here, because it was very hard and safe, dangerous, and healthy also. And I was like thinking of all the pregnant women, same my situation. So I was lucky to be able to be in a safe place and do my baby, but other women might not. Maybe they had difficult to deliver their babies, or maybe their babies or they passed away. I don't know what's going on with them. I just was thinking about all the people in my city, in Homs. And then my husband and I, we made our difficult decision to leave Damascus. We arrived Jordan, and our refugee journey started. In Jordan, we were welcomed initially, but after a few years, the people like see the Syrian refugees like seems as a problem, because they just taking their place, like drain their economy, because when we get out, they always telling us, go back to your country, we don't need you here. We don't have enough space for more refugee people. That's right, we are refugees, but we are a war refugee. If the war not happen in our country, we will never think to leave our country, to leave, like, I can't explain to you how it's hard to say I left my country. Because the country you raised up, you have memories, you have friends, you have families, and then you just left everything behind and went by yourself. But we did all this only for our kids and to find a good place for our kids. And then after we heard that from the people, we are not welcomed. So we start bouncing from country to country, like Lebanon, Turkey, Egypt. And then my 4-year-old son, he asked me, "Mom, I'm very tired. Please, I don't want to keep going from like country to country, place to place. Do we have home? Can you take me back to my home? I need to go back to my home. I need to have my own room. I'm tired, I'm really tired." And at that time, I never have answer for this difficult question. After that, we've been like in Turkey. We went back to Jordan because we have refugee certificate from the UN. So when the refugee first arrive, they will have a refugee certificate, which is mean if you're going to any other country, so you will not be under the UN protection. So you have to protect yourself, and that's very difficult for the refugees, because if you don't able to register and enroll to the UN, that's mean you can't stay at this country. So we went back to Jordan. We contacted by the UN. They asked us if we want to come to USA. We've been very happy, and my husband, he said, "I promise you, we will find everything. We will be having home, place, safe place for our kids. Everything will be great. You left your family behind, but I'm still here. I will support you." And there is like also many refugees. Let me just say specific about the women. They lost their husband for some reason, maybe passed away, or they don't know where they are. But I'm still lucky because I still have my husband, my kids. That's right, I left my family behind, but I still have someone to support me and support my kids. And then we arrived to the US. I just had been through, coming through the war, so I seen the dark side of the people and need a little bit time to rebuild my trust of the people. So when we arrived here, my husband, we arrived to our home, my husband told me, "This is our final destination. So now you have the answer for your son's question. Go ahead and tell him." So I went to my son and I told him, "So we arrived to our home. This is your home. This is your room. You will make friends. You will go to the school, because in Jordan, they didn't allow the refugees to be in their public school or going to be as a normal people going to the normal school." And I still just want to say that, remember, when we've been in Jordan, I tried to enroll my son to the school, so someone in the school told us, "No, you don't have space here. No, we can't accept your son in the public school. So go and put him in a private school." So we've been very happy that we will have my kids going to the school. My daughter will go to the school too. And I heard about the women empowerment group. That gave me so much power. And I learned too much. And then I met to many nice people. They supported us, and they are here today. So I'm super grateful to you. Thank you for coming and supporting us, and continue supporting me and my family. And I love you so much. Thank you. And I would love to thank Chloe, because she believed in me and she was supporting me. And like in the first time, my English was not very good. So I asked her, like, do you understand? She said, yes, your English is very good. Can you help me and try calling the lady if they are coming and make sure, so I will let you handle that. So she make me trust myself and I can be something here. I have the opportunity to do something, to be active in this community. And also I would love to thanks my husband, because he supported me a lot. He always encouraged me to study, work, and I know sometimes I miss something in my home, like complete cleaning, cooking, do something, but he always was supporting me, and he said, no worry, tomorrow we will clean the home, no worry, I can I can cook, I can do. So, but there is many like refugees women, maybe they are not lucky and they don't have someone to support them. And I hope like one day all the refugees women be in my place here and talking about or saying their stories and sharing their stories with you and with everyone. And thank you so much again for listening to my story. Sorry to make some of you or all of you crying today, but I love you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you, for your kind words and for your strength. It takes tremendous courage to sit in front of a room full of people and talk about such personal and such painful details. So
I got the power from all my loved ones here. So I just look at their eyes and get the power from them, and I said, yes, I'm strong. I can complete. I can say.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to hand over now to Mina, who's also going to be sort of talking about some of her observations and some of her own personal journey. And as I mentioned, Mina's coming from a very different country and with a very different experience, so we're lucky to have two different perspectives. Thank you, Mina.
Thank you. Let me tell you a very secret thing about me before starting anything else. I'm the girl who did not have any national ID until she was 18. You cannot believe this. I cannot do it too, okay? Because whenever you're born, you're already given a national ID. You have your ID wherever you're going and you just show your ID. But I was the one that I did not have a national ID until I was 18 and I was graduated from high school. I don't want to blame my parents because of this, because it was not my parents who did not do it. It was the situation and the condition in the war that did not let them to do that. My parents are also refugees. They are immigrants. When for the first time Afghanistan fell to Taliban, my parents migrated to Pakistan. So they never got a chance to get any national ID or Tazkira or Afghan ID for me or for any of my siblings. When I was graduated from high school, then the school was asking me for the Tazkira or the Afghan national ID in order to give me my high school diploma. I said, I don't have any. I said, okay, go and get it. Otherwise you will not have any diploma. When I come back home, I asked my dad, so I don't have anything. How should I get my diploma? It was 12 years. I worked very hard. I don't want to just leave these years go like this without having any document. I forced him to take me back to Afghanistan to get me a national ID or tazkira. When I went to Afghanistan, it was the very first time I went to Afghanistan, and I saw that, the imagination that I had from my own country was horrible. I was thinking, when I go to Afghanistan, it is only war, fighting, gun, weapon, and all these things. I cannot see anything else. When I went back there, thankfully, I saw a very different situation there. It was the good time of Afghanistan. Women were going to school, going to university, they were working, but still there was something off about women's rights. I went there and I got my national ID. Then I asked my dad that for a next thing. Then I asked him, is it possible if I stay here by myself? I start working, I start going to university, because if I go back to Pakistan, I will not be, as a refugee, I was not able to attend or continue my education. He did not agree for a week or 2 weeks. He said, no, it is not possible. I cannot afford it anyways. I cannot leave you by yourself living here. Then I said, okay, please think about this. As I was the oldest daughter of him, he liked me and he was always listening to me. That's why I said, please listen to this. Please think about it again. Then after 2 weeks, he made a very hard decision. He said, okay, we can stay here. I will start working here in Afghanistan. I want to stay with you in Afghanistan. I said, oh, really? That was something that I was really not waiting for. We stay in Afghanistan. It was 2010. Yeah, it was 2010. I start going to school. Going to university. I start working. I had a part-time job. I was a teacher, an English teacher. This sounds awful, right? Because my English is not good now. Think back in 2010 how it was when I was teaching English. I'm sorry for that. I know it was horrible. But I still could, because I wanted to have my own income. I wanted to support myself. I wanted to have a reason to be staying in Afghanistan. Then I got a full-time job. Everything was going so good. I established my own non-profit. I did not have that money. I borrowed a $12,000 from my professor, from my university professor. I did not give it back to him. Yeah, I owe him 12,000 Afghanis until now. Because if I would have asked my dad to give me that money, he would never give that. Because I said, yes, go to your classes and do that. That's all what you're doing. But I did that. I established my own organization. I named my organization Safe the Afghan Women's Rights Organization. I knew just the meaning of Safe Afghan Rights Organization. I made it together, and I just established my organization. I did not have any budget to work. I did not have experience. Nobody would give me any project. I did some small projects from the money that I was working, I was earning. I was saving, and I was spending that in my organization. We were teaching men for the women's rights, because I'm always thinking that this is not the woman who is not accepting or who is not respecting women's rights. This has been mostly men who disrespect the woman's rights. That's why the men needs to be educated, not the women. We start training for the men. Everything was so good. I had a good job. My organization was good. Everything was good. Suddenly, I start receiving some trade letters. Sometimes saying, oh, you'll be shooted. Sometimes saying, I don't know, there will be a car accident for you. Sometimes they were saying, oh, there will be acid splashing in your face or something like that. Different things. In 2014, I start thinking about being safe. Everything was dark for me. Then thankfully, I found a way to get out of Afghanistan, which I can say that so many of my friends, my coworkers, and so many of other activists could not do that, and still they are in Afghanistan. They are living with fear in Afghanistan. When I got my visa for the United States, it was the hardest decision of my life that I made, because I had never been independent. Even when I was in Afghanistan, my dad was with me and he was supporting me. I have never been practicing being by myself. That was the hardest part. At the time that we flight from Afghanistan, we had a layover in Dubai. We used to be in Dubai for 8 hours or more. You know, I had all other families with me. They were families, you know, they were laughing, they were excited, going to the United States. You know, what did I do? The whole night, I found a small couch and I slept there and I cried the whole night. I was missing everything and everyone. You know, I was thinking, where am I going by myself? What am I going to do? When I got to the United States, for the first time, I was living in California. I did not have any friends. For my grocery, I was walking 30 to 45 minutes to Walmart and getting back. The situation got very, very hard that I could not stay more than 3 months in the United States. Although my life was in risk in Afghanistan, but I made another hard decision to go back to Afghanistan. Can you think of this? Because I was by myself. I did not have any other better option to stay here because I was by myself. And you know, if it sounds so crazy, because if you ask any American adult who is over 18, if you ask them to stay by themselves, they say, oh yeah, it will be fun. But not for us, because we have never been given this opportunity to do that as a woman, especially as a woman. And that's why it was so hard for me. And I said, no, let me go back. I cannot do that. I was depressed. I was totally depressed. After 3 months, I went back to Afghanistan, and the same thing was going on. Then I made my decision, and I come back to the US. And thankfully, I found many good friends. They gave me power. They gave me, you know, passion to be staying here. Then I started my education. I went to college. I took some ESL exams, then TSI tests. They were so hard, although I was an English teacher. Can you guys believe? ESL test was hard for me. Yeah, but I could get a way to start my education, and that was my only hope.
Wow, thank you, Mina. Wow, and again, thank you. It's very hard to sort of relive those experiences and share them with a room full of people, so thank you. So as you can see, we have two very different refugee experiences in two very different countries, and like I said earlier, that's useful for this conversation. And I'm gonna start off with a question for Diana, actually. So we've spoken about the isolation and the depression and the loneliness that refugee women feel when they first arrive here in the US. Let's talk about some of the reasons why. Why are they going through that?
The refugees women often they not have the language or skills to access to the information or opportunities. That's why we put such big focus on the information sharing in the women empowerment group, and we are a partner with different organizations. They presenting to the women each week give them like information, sharing information, and contacting them to the opportunities. And also because the refugees women might have many children, and they missed their like support network, because you know, like if they are in their country or around their family, so they will never feel they are alone, and they are responsible to stay with their children, and having like too much thing to do for their children, and caring of them like all the day at home alone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's causing.
So long hours by themselves
Yes.
alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's something we very much see, isn't it? That women are spending these, you know, they might have husbands working double shifts that they never see.
Yes, long time.
So
like
they're on
long
their
hours.
own for many, many hours. And if they're older, maybe they have kids that are out working double shifts. So
Yes, yes.
it's,
Mm-hmm. And also they might like having trauma, depression, anxiety, because you know, when they first arriving here, they come to the completely different culture,
mhm.
and especially with a different language, like it's gonna be hard for them to communicate with the people, and know, like always the beginning it's hard, you know, it's hard, it's very hard, and also it's causing the to like for them to having the isolation and alienation.
Mm-hmm.
Like
And some partners are not as supportive as your husband, so there can be quite restrictive domestic situations for people, for women specifically, preventing them from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
We definitely see that.
Yeah, we see that in our women group.
Nina, it's quite a big question, so I'm actually going to throw that over to you as well. Can you think of some reasons that refugee women are suffering isolation here as they try to readjust to life in the US?
Actually, I think the very big and huge reason can be that they are not used to. They have, like, especially if we speak about Afghanistan and Afghan culture, we are having a life of like living in a colony type life, that everyone is around. Your aunt, your uncle, everybody is around. So when they get here, they're by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And even they don't have their kids in the home, and they don't have their husbands in the home. They're not used to that. And for Afghan women, especially, I can say that everything is so difficult. Last year, whatever happened last year was so harsh. The speed of withdrawal from Afghanistan, it happened within 24 hours.
Yeah.
They were picked from Afghanistan and dropped in the US.
Yeah.
The chaos of the flights, they were transported with a Air Force cargo plane. Even there was no seats that they were sitting. And the flights are too long. Even I want to say that it was very hard for them. Even when the women, the ladies, were experiencing their cycle, something like very, they did not have any opportunity.
Wow.
Anything, any facility in that plane. So how we can think about that? Even we cannot think about that. That can be the biggest other reason that they are getting isolated here.
Yeah, so we saw initially very much through our sort of work, resettlement work, that people were quite traumatized by the speed of that withdrawal. So unlike someone who from, say, Syria, for example, who still went through a horrific situation, but had several years to adjust in a refugee camp, The speed of the withdrawal from Afghanistan was an additional trauma for the
They
refugees.
were not prepared for anything.
They were not prepared.
They did not have any financial preparation. They did not have any, environmental preparation. They were not prepared for anything.
No chance to say goodbye to anybody or anything. It was horrific for the populations that we work with. And actually, I'm gonna sort of expand that question. We've been talking quite generally about refugee women, but for Afghan women, are there any other specific issues that they face that are more challenging for them, say, than perhaps other refugee women groups?
I think the other big challenge for them are language. They don't speak English. And some of them are even not educated. They have never had access to school. And that makes everything harder.
Mm-hmm.
And even I don't want to say that it is something cultural. It is not our culture, but it is something that has been translated by some people, that women are restricted to be stay at home, even though they are directly not saying to the woman that you're not allowed to go outside, stay at home, but they give them the boundaries that they are compelled to be staying at home the whole day. They do not have any access to, even most of them, they don't have access to any phone. They don't have their own phones, their cell phones. They cannot communicate their family, their friends. They can be isolated.
Yeah.
And even in the other thing that is, I am the example of, is that we are not used to. We have never been given a chance to. If you're in Afghanistan, if you're a female, if you're by yourself, you will never be able to have a rental home or house for you, unless you don't have a man who can be your brother, your husband, your father. We are not used to. And that's why I risked my life and I back home.
Yeah.
I went.
We very much see that with the groups that we're working with. Refugee women often lack what we could call cultural confidence, that confidence that makes them feel like they can go out and explore opportunities and
Exactly.
and be okay in a place by themselves. And that's one of the challenges for resettlement work, is to support women to build that confidence again. People quite often go, oh, you'll be all right, just go for it. But as we can see from Mina's situation, she was actually prepared to risk her life to go back, because it was so difficult for her to sort of develop that cultural confidence. And many of the women that we work with come from cultures where they haven't been given advocacy over their lives ever, and they've not been allowed to be part of the decision-making process. And that really, that psychological shift when you come here is extremely difficult for women to get over.
Yeah, and even when you are in Afghanistan, when you're born as a girl, you said, don't laugh loud, you're a girl. Don't play outside, you're a girl. Don't do this, you're a girl. Don't go outside by yourself, you're a girl, you're a girl, you're a girl, you're a girl. That has been copied in our minds, that, oh yeah, we cannot do anything by ourselves. We are girls, we always need supports. Of course, we need supports, but we should not be dependent.
And that's one of the reasons that we see that refugee women are so at risk of isolation, because of that lack of cultural confidence that pushes them outside of their boundaries to explore opportunities. I'm going to jump back to Diana, but I just want to touch on a point that you made about education in Afghanistan as well. The literacy rate in Afghanistan at the moment is sitting at around 21%.
Yep.
So that means about 80% of the women that we work with cannot read or write in their own language. That has all sorts of challenges associated with it. Just being able to access information, like Diana said, it's a big part of what we do in our women's empowerment group, is to make sure that there is a large amount of information being given to the women, because they can't just look stuff up online like we would be able to, and like our Arabic women are able to. for Afghan women, they are denied access to that whole sort of like wealth of information, and often their partners are their main source of information. So you better sort of hope they've got a good relationship, and that isn't unfortunately always the case. Diana, you touched on English language being an issue. Again, I just want to talk about sort of English language acquisition, right? So one of the biggest challenges for refugee women is to actually learn English. So why is it so hard for refugee women to learn English here?
Because the refugee women often, if they have a young children, it's hard for them to commit to in-person classes without childcare. And also if the lessons are virtual with kids attending or present, it's going to be hard to focus, especially because they will learn new language. It's like not their language or own language, because when you will hear something about you, like your own language, and you already know this language, so that's okay if you have someone around you, so you still focus and you will understand. But with a new language, it's very difficult and hard to find someone just like take your attention to somewhere else instead of to focus on the English classes. And also, I think because when they arrived here, like the refugees, when they arrived here, they may have like many doctor's appointments for themselves or for their kids. So maybe every week they will have 2 to 3 appointments. That's made them falling like behind of the classes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also I feel like because the women, same what you said, they not be able to access to the information or opportunities because they have like lack of the English or understanding. So if they can't understand or like read or write their own language, it's very difficult for them, and it's causing for them to feel like depression and frustrated. So if I can't write in my own language, so I will never learn this new language. It's hard for me. I can't. So they practice their mind to have these words in their mind, and because I tell you, like in the Middle East, always the people will say, "Oh no, I can't do that," but here they said, "I can do that." I still remember, like when I first arrived, I was with someone, so I said, "Oh, it's hard. I can't do that." So she told me, "Please take this advice. Don't say I can do. Say I can do, and make your brain practice for this word. Don't say I can do. Say I can do." And then after that, I said, "I can do this. It's easy for me. It's not hard." So this is the problem, and making the women feeling it's hard to to learn English. It's hard to understanding, and they don't have anyone to encourage them.
Yeah.
To just like and supporting them and ask them to go. You can go. You can learn. You can have this. Like, if you practice 2 words during the day, you will like second day you will add 3 words, 4 words. So they don't have anyone to encourage them to do that.
Yeah, and I would like to mention that for the women that learning is so hard. Diana said that they have kids. Yeah, they have kids. And beside that, they don't drive. They cannot participate in in-person classes. Like most of the time, they have this problem. And I would like to say that we need to always be clear on this, that we are, or I am, the only person that I can help myself. if they reach to this, which is very hard, I know, because we have never been practicing this. As I said, we have always been dependent to somebody else. It is very hard to say, oh yeah, I am the person that I can heal myself if I'm sick. I'm the person that I can appreciate myself. Like I'm trying to do sometimes, like my coworker saying, oh Mina, why you do that? Like if I'm doing some good job, I'm saying, good job Mina, you did it. Yeah. Or sometimes if I'm achieving something, I'm saying, I'm going and buying any book for me. I'm gifting myself. It's okay if nobody is here to gift me. I can do it for myself. But we need to believe on ourselves as a woman. We have come from a very different culture, country, and people, situation, but we need to believe that we can change all those things, because they were not the reality. The reality is something else, which we can really change it. And we should believe on ourselves. That is very important.
Definitely agree with that. I think one of the issues as well that you both touched on is, we are dealing with people who've been through extreme trauma, having anxiety attacks, stress, all those kind of things. It's extremely difficult to focus and to retain information when you have that level of trauma. So I think that's the other issue that refugee women are going through, and the survivor's guilt as well, the idea that they survived when other people didn't survive. So these issues are reoccurring and they stay with people for years, and I think that can really blur women's ability to focus.
And I think this can be, we need to focus, we as agencies, we as people, we as friends, we as families, we need to focus on mental health for women. We need to focus. In our culture, if somebody is going and checking with a therapist or with a counselor, the person is called crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, this person is crazy.
It's
That's
in
why.
our country too.
Yeah. Seeing a therapist. But we need to change that culture. We need to help women who are here as a friend, as a neighbor, as a family, or as an agency.
Yeah. So a lot more mental health support is definitely needed. One thing that everyone in the audience may or may not be aware of is that refugee resettlement agencies actually support clients for up to 5 years. And during that 5 years, they have the opportunity to learn English classes, they have the opportunity to do vocational training, and they can learn to drive. There's a whole host of support mechanisms there for free, okay? But after that 5-year window, they have to pay, okay?
Yes.
So Diana, I'm gonna ask you that question. Do you feel that 5-year window in terms of access to free classes is a problem for women?
Yes, actually it's a problem because many refugees women miss their window to access to the free classes, as some of the family they feel like there is not a priority for the women or for the mom to educate it. So we see in our women, the husbands going to learn English because they said the husband is responsible to support the family, have a work, having starting to rebuild their life by himself. And he thought just to keep the women with the children, and then he can just learn, have all the opportunity free. I meant opportunities because the agencies will give them a free classes, and also they can go to the college, they can complete their education, attend ESL classes in the Houston Community College or UH or everywhere. So the agency can help them with that. So the husband, they just said, okay, we will do this for us and then you can stay. And after 5 years, the lady, they have idea how the life will be here. So they start feeling, yes, we want to start learning English, and it was very difficult because they have to pay, especially with the low income home. And also the second reason, maybe again, the women have like small children, and she has like waiting him to go attend the school, and then she will go to have the English classes, and at that time she will miss her window to access the free classes.
So that's something we very much see in our women's empowerment group program. So we have women who are essentially stuck at home with pre-K kids, and as we all know, they don't get to go to school. They're pregnant again maybe, but the kids don't go to school until 4.5 or 5 years. That's the window of support. So we very much see that after that point, they've missed their chance to learn how to drive, they've missed their chance to access all these classes, but they're then at a position of, like so many women on the planet, starting to focus on themselves a wee bit when the kids are back in school, and they've missed that opportunity. If it's a low-income family, there is not money being spared for mum's education. And that is why we see women 10 years, 15 years later, unable to still speak English or drive.
Yes.
So do you think it would be useful if there was a policy shift to perhaps in refugee resettlement to support refugee mothers so that they could have an extension of that time that they could access those courses?
Definitely, yes. It is a vital because it has given a time for a woman to build their confidence,
the cultural confidence.
Yes, and become aware of a reality of the life here in the US. So that would be great if they can extending this for, especially for the women who has like little children and they not be able to access the free classes during this 5 years.
Yeah, that's a massive gender distinction that
Yes.
I think would really make a big change, to a generational change to refugee women and their families. So we've spoken about a few of the sort of negatives of resettling here and some of the difficulties for women. I just want to sort of flip it over and talk about some of the positives, and particularly for women that have come from countries where they haven't had agency over their own lives, or they have been removed from the decision-making process and all of those aspects. How can the resettlement opportunity expand things for them? I'm going to ask Mina that.
To be very honest, sometimes I don't want to say that I did not like my culture or my country. I would love to be staying there, but I could not do that. But I'm feeling proud of myself that I could do, or I can do, the things or the processes that I was always dreaming about. I was always thinking and dreaming about having my own apartment, not very luxury, but my own, which I'm paying for, my own car, my own job, where I'm going by myself. I'm saying, oh yeah, that's me, I'm going to rent this home. That was a dream for me, and that dream came true. I know it had too much trauma for me. I moved from Afghanistan to here, but I always see the positive sides, what I get. I have my passport, I can travel by myself anywhere I want to go, but if I was in Afghanistan, I was not able to do that. I could not do that. I'm going to get my degree, and I'm going to get my master degree, maybe another degree higher than that. But I'm still very happy that I'm earning. There is no one who asks me, about my money, about my home, about my job, where am I going. I'm not happy that I don't have my family here. I'm happy that I'm independent. As an adult, I'm making my own decisions. Of course, I miss my family always and always, but I have some good friends here. I want to say that this transition was hard, but I still have positive things and positive.
I'm just going to just sort of jump in. So you're very lucky because you spoke English when you came here.
Exactly, exactly.
So you arrived as an English teacher.
As an English teacher.
Being able to speak English and being able to use a computer. Many of the women that we work with have neither of those skills. And what we commonly see, and actually, Kelsey, this relates to some of the research that you did, is that women are making a choice for themselves. They're making the best choice they have in their circumstances to improve their situation.
It's
marriage.
Marriage.
It's very Jane Austen.
Yeah.
But we see commonly women taking control of their lives and making that choice, that best choice for themselves in that situation. And it is so often marriage. Diana, I'll ask you to talk about that because I think that's something that we see in both cultures.
Yeah. So about the Syrian or the Arabic culture, here they just like got married in like when they are 25, 26, sometimes 29, and sometimes 35. So they said, we never think about getting married now, we're just thinking about our future, okay? But because they are here. But when about the people back home, previously they've been get married like around 9 years old, 20 years old, and if the girl arrived to 23 years old, so they said, oh, you are older now. No one will get married from you. Oh, you are older now. So I'm very happy because they thought it's just like changing now, and because for me, I feel like if you want to get married, you have to know who will do the relationship, because building the relationship, it's very hard, it's not easy, because you have to be very careful to know the people you will do a partner with. Is he understanding you, you understanding him? Is he able to support you, or you will be like holding our hands all the way in our life, or just like I just want to be married and I send my mom to see girl for me, and then if this girl, my mom like it, like okay, I will let my son to come and get married with her. Mm-hmm. I don't like this, and unfortunately this is the way they're doing some families now in our country.
So you're saying that resettled families or resettled women are waiting longer to get married here than they would do back in Syria. Okay, so that is a real, that's a real positive. I'm going to bounce that question to you, Mina, because I suspect with many of our Afghan women that we're working with and serving, that isn't the case, because of this missing education link. Because
exactly. Let me tell you one thing. When I first come here, it was 2 weeks or 3 weeks I was here. There was an Afghan family. They were coming and asking me, how are you doing? One day they came and they said, oh yeah, we have our, I don't know, cousin or relative, if you want to get married. I said, what? No, not me. I said, why you're thinking that I'm getting married? They said, oh yeah, it will be so hard for you to live here by yourself. It's not easy.
You will be alone.
Yeah, you will be feeling alone. You will not be, you need to work the whole time. You need to support yourself. At least you will have a supporter. Then I said, no, actually, I'm not going to do that. This is the very dark side of the reality that it is happening in our society. Like people, when from my community, when first they meet me, they ask, "Oh yeah, do you live with your family?" I'm saying, "Oh no, I'm living by myself." They say, "Oh, I know, it is so hard, it is difficult. Yeah, if I were you, I could never do that." And so many other things. But I'm always telling them, no, it's not hard for me. I always talk to my family. They're happy, they're okay. I'm going to school, I'm going to work.
But again, you're highly literate.
Yeah, but I know friends and women that have come from Afghanistan, and immediately they got married. Even they found it as their best choice of surviving in the United States.
So women are taking that advocacy for themselves and they're making that choice, but it's their best survival choice in their minds at that point. And I think that's the challenge for a resettlement agency, is that we need to make sure that women feel like they've got the strength and the belief that there are other opportunities other than marriage, and give them the education basis that they need to bring them up, so that marriage isn't the only option, as we see it is for so many of the women that we serve.
I believe the friends that they got married, and I believe that they were not in love in getting married, but that was their only choice that they had, and they wanted to prevent being judged from the society.
So I think we are out of time for our conversation, but does anybody have any questions that they would like to? Wow, okay. So we'll start with the gentleman at the back there.
Yes, first for those observing the holy month, Ramadan Kareem. Second, welcome to our new Houstonians. It's great that you're here, and it makes all of us much better in the community. Third, anybody that's not familiar with IMGH and the other agencies who receive refugees and immigrants, they're wonderful organizations. For those of us that would like to help ease your transition into Houston, what parts of the resettlement do you think that we can most effectively contribute to? Thank you.
That's a great question. There are a number of ways that people can support refugees here in Houston. It's actually one of the questions that we didn't get to this evening, so thank you for asking that. You can family mentor, and the reason I'm highlighting family mentoring is because that has a massive impact on refugee women and supporting them to build that cultural confidence. It's that hand-holding that they need to adapt. So family mentoring has a sort of generational impact. That's one way. And Diana, I think you want to jump in here. Yeah.
Yes, I think family mentoring, it's as such a great help for the refugees who they arrived or new arrival, because actually I have very nice family mentoring. They help us and they supported us. She doesn't want me to say her name, but I want to say her name. Christine and James Garrett. I am very grateful for them because they have been and they still helping us and supporting us a lot with everything. And also Nancy, she helped me a lot, and everyone here. But I feel like the family mentoring, it's very important to helping the refugees, because they will be like a hope for them, same what we had like when we've been arrived like in just 3 days, and then we had Christine, she came to visit us, and it was a hope for us. We said like someone here, they need us here, they welcome us here, because we had like too many bad experiences with people, they don't welcome us. So we've been afraid if the people will accept us here, and if they will welcome us here. So yeah, it's going to be very great help for the refugees, and you will be the hope for them. So thank you so much for this great questions.
That's just one way. That's just one way. And Interfaith Ministries is a big resettlement agency. There is everything from supporting with resume building, employment, school enrollments, driving the women to and from our women's empowerment group. Many of you have helped with the children, help with the food, with the actual structure of our women's groups. Mina, you may have some ideas as well about the other ways as you do.
Yeah, the best way to get in and start helping refugees will be volunteering in different ways. Like we have our mentorship, like we have our co-sponsors, like big groups are sponsoring or helping, volunteering, and we have our individual inside and offsite. Yeah, I guess the best way, volunteering.
So you can either email me if you're interested in getting involved, or you can go to our volunteerhouston.org website, and that lists all of the volunteer opportunities available to Interfaith Ministries. But you know, we're very human, so you can just give us a call and have a chat and see what feels right for you as a volunteer opportunity. Yeah. The lady at the back.
Thank you all so much. This was really incredible, and I'm so appreciative of you taking the time and sharing your stories. You mentioned one kind of policy idea of extending that 5-year period for refugee women. Are there other policy ideas or suggestions that you think would help fill the gaps or address any gender-specific needs that arise here for your clients?
Thanks. That's a great question. I might jump in on that one if you two don't mind. A couple of thoughts on that. One, childcare. Okay, childcare. This is not a problem that is unique to the refugee community, but it's particularly condemning for the refugee community and for the women, because they cannot access any of those core. So if I win the lottery, what I would do is start a charity that starts providing childcare to refugee women so that they are able to access the courses that they want to for training and all those kind of things. It's the one thing that holds them back. And the second sort of potential in my wish policy list sort of changes is I would probably extend the amount of time before clients have to be self-sufficient. So even though it's something that we are very proud of because it shows that people are standing on their own 2 feet, what it essentially does is traps them into a poverty cycle, because very quickly they're working in jobs that they don't speak English proficiently in, and they're stuck in those jobs for years and years and years without being able to increase their skill set. So again, I would ensure that the English is really solid before we're pushing people into employment and self-sufficiency. So that's my policy change wish list.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that not being able to participate until younger kids go into school, would pre-K programs being made available at 3 years old instead of 4.5 or 5, would that be something that they would even be interested in or open to? Would that be helpful in any way?
I think anything that improves opportunities is positive. But again, one of the things that we're pushing against is, for many of the women, their education is not prioritized in the home. So even if it was opened up as an opportunity for all women, the question would be how many of the women would be able to take that and would be supported. Again, Diana has a very supportive family situation, but not everybody is in that is in that lucky situation. Sir?
Yeah. First, thank you very, very much. Now, unfortunately, the reality is when we look at geopolitics and take an example across the pond, as we say in Italy, with Giorgia Meloni, or in France, Marine Le Pen, or even here with our good friend up in Boston, with his stunts, or the other gentleman in Florida, right? It's gaining, it does gain unfortunately traction, right? So the question is, what tools being used to address this, and number one, and number two, as trying to coordinate with sister organizations, be it here or also worldwide, because it's the same issue that is being faced.
In terms of the sheer volume of refugees coming?
To address this mentality of anti-refugees, anti-immigrants, and again, like we have seen in Florida, where the gentleman there decided to ship people to DC, or the gentleman here in Austin decided to ship people, same thing, to the Northeast. This anti-refugee, anti-immigrant mentality. So any coordination with other organizations to address that.
So I first of all want to make the sort of distinction. Economic migrants are very different from refugees, and there's often a lot of confusion about that. So often what we see is very sort of like anti-economic migrant attitudes confused with anti-refugee refugee attitudes. So I would say that's the sort of main distinction. We're a refugee resettlement agency, so there's a presidential cap that is placed every year on the number of refugees that are allowed into the US. So it's a slightly different situation to that migrant situation that you're seeing coming across the border. Okay. Yeah.
You know, I agree with 100%, right? But and many times the two are linked. I mean, take an example: the war in Syria. It started basically really due to global warming. I mean, there was not enough rain in eastern Syria, and people migrating, and it created the issues, and things went from one thing to the next one. So that's why I was just looking at to try to work with other similar organizations as a larger workforce. That's what I was trying to lead to.
Well, actually, all of the agencies, they do meet regularly and they do discuss all of these issues. So there is like a partnership between them. We're not sort of working our own. There's like quarterly consultation meetings and various other things that do go on to address some of those sort of issues and prejudices. I'm just going to, do we have time for one more question?
I'm with the question, like, refugee is an issue, it's a world issue.
Yeah.
And whether it's economic immigration or refugee, both of them are financially costly. And so what I want to know, as far as the world, UN, contribution financially, is there a pot or something that, you know, for refugees that are being migrated to different countries or transported to different countries? How is that policy set up? I only hear about local organizations and of course the U.S. government, but is there a pot for the world where there is finances?
To be honest, I would hope so, but I'm not the best person to answer that question. So my apologies, that's slightly outside my school of experience, yeah.
We're pretty much out of time, so I'll just say that, well, there is sort of a pie. It's not a big enough pot. Okay. And the U.S. contributes to that pot, effectively run through the United Nations, but and we do some of our part by helping to resettle refugees from countries that are mostly hosting refugees, which are poorer countries in the global south. So we resettle, as Chloe was mentioning, there's sort of a yearly cap on how many refugees we resettle each year, but arguably it's not enough.
Yeah. And
we could probably do more. But I'll end with that note, and thank you so much to all of our panelists.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nina, Amina, and Diana. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences.